blending online and offline gaming experiences.
Hello, good morning, Sigma. My name is Oliver de Bono. I'm the CEO at Quantum Gaming. I would initially like to introduce to the stage two panelists who I've done many campaigns and panels with. Joe, old friend, legend, legacy in the gaming industry, and Daniel as well from TRIION Gaming. Let's give them a warm hand.
This one or this one?
No, like this is perfect.
Okay, good.
So we're missing one panelist today. Okay, it's actually already been sorted. That's fantastic. So today we're here to talk about an age-old question. And Joe, we were talking about this earlier. We've spoken about this many, many times, and you actually brought up some really interesting data. Blending online and offline gaming, right? When the iGaming industry first kicked up in the early 2000s, late 90s, there was always this major concern, and even lobbies from the land base saying, oh, they're going to take our business. We know today, literally 2.5 decades on, it's not the case. You mentioned earlier, which I actually want to kick off as our initial talking point, that it was Caesars who ran a test sample and found that giving those same land-based players online experiences increased the numbers. Let's start with that as our topic.
Yeah, having that bridge between online and land-based, a few months ago, Caesars in Vegas, they ran a study. From the time they went online, their land-based went up 20% because they see the online offering as a fabulous marketing tool for the land-based property. More people, their brand reaches more people by going online. For us, we operate in the Philippines. We saw online, we had retail sports betting within the integrated resorts. During COVID, we saw online as a business continuity plan for the land-based properties. So we don't call it online, we call it remote gaming because it's an extension of the casino floor. So by extending the casino floor up to the online player, we were able to get the casino brands out to the players. And during COVID, when the property was closed, operations could continue.
Well, that's really interesting because, I mean, me as a person, I love land-based casinos, I'll be honest with you. And, there are certain tables I like, and we were talking about this, earlier. And I'll switch to you, Daniel, because we're also talking about a little bit of VR. I find that VR hasn't yet taken off. I think that kind of immersive element still has a way to go. Maybe it's a technology restriction, but VR has a habit of kind of like appearing in the 70s and then again in the 90s and now again in the 2000s or late 2000s. But basically, my question is, what is the restriction? Why is it that players, is it the feeling? Because obviously I much rather be in a casino. You've got the vibe, you've got the feeling of it, the risk factor. Obviously, not always a good thing, but the alcohol too. You can drink at home, right? But basically, what is it that kind of compels people towards, the land-based operation, and what is VR doing to bring this element home?
I think it's really important to mention, especially for those who are willing to use VR, that they're looking not just for the game experience itself, but it's more emotional experience. This is why they're going to land-based casinos as well, to not just play slots, but be part of this community. And VR, it's something what can solve the problem because we are repacking existing games. We're taking the games and giving them new feel, new experience. So instead of clicking the slots online, you can do that in VR. Of course, comparing VR and land-based casino, it's not something what we should do. Like land-based casino will be always different thing. It's the same like we're having now. We have in-person chat. You will never have that feeling in VR. But we as well have to remember the thing that there is a new generation who is like, they love to play games, they discovering slots, crash games, etc. So yeah, I think here VR is something what can mix the experience of current online casinos and land-based casinos and provide that to the user.
Well, I mean, that's exactly it. You want to give that experience. But there's also a question, and I found this, probably Joe, you probably been touching on this subject for a while. There's always been a resilience from the land-based to go online. Now, as a platform provider, I've actually got a few clients that I have approached and gone, you know, why don't I take your brand online? Why don't we keep branding to those individuals? You know, I just find that it's a very strong branding exercise. And basically what you're doing is you're kind of also instilling trust from a much further distance. But why don't more land-based operations go, hey, I want to put, okay, we know Caesars does and MGM does, but why isn't every land-based operation going, I'll have an online presence, even if it's fully regulated, even if I can only target those individuals that are within my, you know, target demographic? Why aren't they all going online, Joe?
In our market, we're now seeing the integrated resorts going online. So Arcada, City of Dreams, Solaire, New Star. Initially, they were worried the online operator was a third-party brand, but now what we do, we use our back end and we brand it New Star, we brand it Arcada. So the URL that the player sees is the brand of the casino. They also wanted to take their land-based product online. So we now have remote play slots, which are live slot machines from the casino property that you can play online. So you can play a live machine on the casino floor, and you can play that machine online. We're also setting up a studio in Sri Lanka of 1,000 machine studio, which will be live slot machines streamed to online, the same way tables are streamed. Some players prefer to play live slots, there's a trust factor, than virtual.
That's really interesting. So coming from, let's say, I mean, ultimately we're a tech company, so I'm looking at the technical requirements over there. Are we maintaining, like we were going to have a physical slot machine, maintaining the same RTP, whether it's online or not? So we're looking at one integrated system.
Correct. So it's one machine, one player, same RTP, exactly the same product that you're playing on the floor. The only difference, you're playing it online. You just need your cloud server, your streaming server. You need to make sure the latency on the machine is correct, so your screen's not jumping. And the player plays that live machine.
That's really interesting, because obviously you're going to have two components over there, right? You're going to have the slot machine and an RGS communicating at the same time. You know, we ran this test on our product, and we can get a wallet to run about 30 simultaneous game sessions. It's quite tricky to do because you need to make sure that those calls happen in the correct sequence. And obviously there isn't the case of, you know, a bet gets placed in a bet and win package, and obviously there's not enough funds to then come back and rectify the wallet. But that's a very interesting concept, because for me, then the question would be, does it mean that those slot games will not be accessible when someone's playing with them online? Or are we talking about a whole new world?
They're separated from the casino floor. So the remote slots are behind glass in a separate area. And if you go to a casino, a lot of their machines are not 100% utilized. Usually they're only 60%, so they can take machines off the floor, put them in the remote studio, connect, and take them online.
I mean, that's a really cool piece of innovation, to be honest with you.
In the Philippines, where we're operating now, just number-wise, the machines are doing 1,200 US per day, net win per day, per machine.
Seems like a pretty good investment. So, Daniel, talking about that, I mean, looking at it as, again, how do we capture those players? Because I think the issue today is still that divide, and it maybe comes a little bit into regulation. I think maybe, Joe, we'll touch on this a bit more, but one of the issues we've found, and I think why a lot of land-based operators don't go online, is also the risks are there, right? You don't want to go into that space where you're highly regulated, land-based, 150 million or $500 million in some cases, land-based operation is taking risks in the online world, because we all know that land-based makes 100x, versus the online world. But what's your take on that, Daniel? Do you think that land-based casinos will continue to push that social element?
Definitely. Honestly, even if we focus on online stuff, I really think that the land-based casino, they give this, they're charging the whole industry by just existing. Because what we are trying to develop, all these online casinos, we can speak about VR, etc. We are modifying the experience which was already developed before. We are modifying land-based casinos by bringing them online. We are bringing providers there. We are developing VR on top. But really and truly, from my perspective, we are just developing tools to get more comfortable access with different tweaks for land-based casinos. Because without them, the rest won't exist. Speaking about live tables online, we have the same blackjack table like in land-based. Speaking about VR, what we are doing, we are recreating the land-based studios and trying to bring this feeling. Because we all know that whatever generation we talk to, whatever experience we're discussing, it all started there, and it's true. We're just modifying it. So yeah, land-based is kind of, to me, it's like an engine of the casinos, of the industry here.
I mean, that's interesting what you were saying, because you reminded me of an idea. Actually, when I was in Manila last year, we did meet a company that was looking to push the concept of kind of like brokers in a way that will represent, they were talking about wearing these kind of, not VR headsets, but...
yeah, the Apple glasses and Meta glasses.
But not just that, they actually wanted to broadcast play. So they had this initial concept where certain people couldn't get to a particular casino. They would walk in on your behalf, they'd have an earpiece, and they'd be like, okay, now is the time to bet on black. So it was more of a kind of, I suppose, what's the word, like an avatar experience you can look at. So you're actually telling someone what to do with your money, which is quite interesting. There was an issue of, obviously, I suppose KYC became a little bit of an issue over there, especially for the high rollers. But I think we're going to start moving into an element where you go to a casino table and you're going to have 5 real people over there and then 3 online people. And especially with kind of like slot games that have trigger buttons, right? Sorry, not slot games, roulette. So roulette with trigger buttons, those can actually be initiated by one of the online players. Because, if you look at what Evolution Gaming did, they took that element and they kind of brought the casino fun home. I mean, they were, let's be fair, the pioneer. But the next stage is a hybrid. Is that actually going to be something that would be realistic in Manila? Would regulations allow for something of that nature?
Domestically, yes.
Domestically, that's my next subject, actually.
Yeah. So domestically, yes. Internationally, no. Philippines just banned all offshore gaming.
Yes.
So it needs to now be domestic. All offshore operators need to leave by December 31st. So all gaming in the Philippines now is domestic. But there are other areas like Sri Lanka where we're going to, where we can be both domestic and international.
That's really interesting. I don't know if anybody knows this. Maybe I shouldn't say it on stage, but we'll be having one of these there very, very soon. I think you and me will be sitting down. That's where we're going to go do a little bit of an exploration exercise and see what it's like. But the market is big. They have a lot of localized games. Not to go into that subject because we're going to run out of time really soon. But I wanted to touch on this, the domestic versus international business. As a brand that targets your local market, just like you're a UK casino within the UKGC.
Yes.
Ultimately, as a regulated entity, you're still only targeting a domestic audience, right? So why aren't like the Grosvenor Casino? Why isn't the local-based, I don't know, the Hippodrome and many other brands? Why aren't they going for that audience? Because if I was a player and I had that opportunity to play from home and have that engaged VR experience, when I'm in London or when I'm in Manila, I will go to that casino because I know it. I might even know the croupiers by name by then, right? So this is the question. You touched on the regulation front. Is it the risks? Because I don't think there should be any risks for domestic traffic. Is there? You tell me.
For domestic, no, we don't have that risk there. But going, and we will see it. We will see the domestic eventually extend to the international market. It'll build tourism for the country. It extends the domestic brands internationally. It just needs the regulation in place to allow it. At the moment, we block international traffic. But the day will come when regulation does change.
We spoke about this briefly yesterday, and I know we're going to get hailed off stage in a second, but I wanted to touch on something interesting over here because we were talking about it as the whole ADR scene yesterday, and we said, you know, if I'm in Manila, and I absolutely love Manila, I love the casinos there, and I walk into a casino, I can play freely on that casino. But if I'm home and I'm going to fly to Manila in a couple of weeks, whatever the reason is, I can't play on that. Maybe my jurisdiction allows for it. So I think it's more of a framework that hasn't come into place to fully adapt the interface between land-based and online. But basically, guys, I'm being hailed off stage. I want to say thank you to our panelists. I absolutely love this topic. It's an age-old topic. I know Trudy's loving in the corner. I always go over Trudy, we know that. But I just want to say thank you, Joe. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank
These
you,
are the
Oliver.
experts.
Thank you.
Before I go off, does anyone have any questions for the panelists? No, we're good, guys. Thank you so much. And thank you, Trudy. Thank you, Sigma.
Thank you so much.